Let's be real, the COVID-19 pandemic completely upended our world. But it did something else too. It acted like a massive fast forward button for the internet, pushing nearly every part of our lives online practically overnight. And this created a brand new playbook for businesses. And probably nowhere was that felt more than in the world of Google Ads. Okay, let's get into it. I mean, this quote just nails it, right? The pandemic didn't just change our routines, it changed our priorities, our jobs, how we spend our money, everything. For advertisers, the old rules just didn't apply anymore. It was a classic adapt or die moment in a world that had literally transformed in the blink of an eye. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at that initial shock to the system, the great ad shakeup. Then we're going to decode the new benchmarks, looking at the 4 key numbers that tell the real story. After that, we'll see who came out on top and who got left behind, the winners and losers. And finally, we'll dig into the big why, the secret sauce behind why some ads worked so well. So lockdowns start rolling across the globe, and suddenly work from home is the new normal. Our screens, they became our offices, our malls, our movie theaters, our everything. And this led to this tidal wave of online traffic. But at the same time, you had all this economic uncertainty. It basically threw advertisers into a completely new, totally unpredictable arena. Now, to really get what was happening, you gotta look at the data. We're gonna break down the 4 essential metrics, the KPIs that every digital marketer obsesses over. These are the numbers that really pull back the curtain on how the pandemic changed the game for advertising. First up is click-through rate, or CTR. With everyone suddenly glued to their screens, this became a huge indicator of what was grabbing people's attention. So the big question was, were people actually engaging with these ads, or were they just doom scrolling right past them? And what's wild is that during all this chaos, the average click-through rate for search ads actually went up to 5.90%. Think about that. With everyone at home, we weren't just browsing, we were searching with a real purpose, which made us way more likely to click. Next, we've got cost per click. This is simply the price you pay for that one click. And with budgets getting squeezed everywhere, this number became the center of a massive economic tug-of-war. And here's where things get really interesting. See, for most industries, like food and restaurants, businesses pulled back on their ad spend. Less competition meant the average cost per click went down. But that wasn't true for everyone. High-stakes industries like legal services actually saw competition skyrocket as people searched for help online, which drove their ad costs up. Okay, so getting a click is great, but getting a sale? That's the whole point. And that brings us to conversion rate. This is the ultimate test, right? Does your ad actually get someone to do something, like buy a product? In that climate, this was the metric that really mattered. And this chart shows a huge divide. The search network, that's when you're actively typing something into Google, saw its conversion rate stay strong, even climbing a bit to 3.75%. But the display network, those banner ads you see on websites, they took a big hit, dropping all the way to 0.77%. The takeaway here is massive. Ads that responded to a user's intent crushed the ones that were just passive. And finally, cost per action, or CPA. This metric basically ties it all together and answers the one question every business owner was asking: what did it actually cost me to get one new customer? This was the ultimate measure of your return on investment. And here's the surprise. The average cost to get a customer on the search network actually fell to around $56. That's way cheaper than the display network, which was costing over $90 per customer. So it became cheaper and more efficient to convert people who were actively looking for something. This advantage for search really set the stage for some dramatic winners and losers across the economy. So we've seen the what, how the key numbers shifted. Now let's talk about the who. Because this wasn't a rising tide that lifted all boats. Not even close. What emerged was this fractured landscape with some industries absolutely booming and others, well, just trying to survive. And as we go through this next part, I want you to think about your own world, your own job. Did you see a boom, a bust, or something way more complicated? Because this data, it tells a story that so many of us actually lived through. All right, so the big winners were the industries that met our new lockdown-era needs. Dating services, they exploded, conversion rates over 9% as everyone searched for connection. Nonprofits and charities saw an incredible 20% jump in conversions. And of course, health, medical, beauty, personal care, all of these surged as we focused on taking care of ourselves at home. And I mean, come on, what did we all do when we were stuck inside? We watched stuff, we played games, on-demand media became king. Conversions from search ads for streaming services and entertainment literally doubled. It was a massive captive audience, and they delivered. Real estate tells a much trickier story. On the one hand, nobody was searching for big construction projects during all that uncertainty. But on the other hand, a huge wave of people started looking for a new place to live, maybe one with a home office. And that led to a 30% spike in conversions for agents and brokers. It's the same industry, but two totally different outcomes. And now we have to talk about the industry that was hit the hardest, the fastest, and the most directly. With borders shutting down and everyone told to stay home, you know the one. Travel and tourism just stopped. The numbers here are just gut-wrenching. Hotels and restaurants saw their conversion rates from search ads fall off a cliff, a drop of 59%. People weren't searching to book a trip. They were searching to cancel one. It was a brutal, brutal blow. So, after looking at all this data, the metrics, the winners, the losers, it all boils down to one huge question. Why? Why did the Google Search Network hold up so much better than other types of advertising during this crazy time? Well, the answer comes down to one simple but incredibly powerful idea. This is it. This is the whole ballgame. Unlike a banner ad that interrupts what you're doing, a search ad answers a question you just asked. When you go to Google, you are an active user. You are typing in your exact need, your problem. You have high intent. And in a time of incredible need, ads that spoke directly to that intent weren't just more effective, they were essential. And that really brings us to the big question looking forward. Yeah, the world is more or less back to normal, but are we? Has the pandemic, which crammed a decade of digital change into about a year, permanently rewired our habits? Has this crisis forever changed how we think about advertising, putting user intent at the absolute center of everything? That's the billion-dollar question we're all watching now. Thanks for watching.